Welcome, everyone. We are now live because we went live and I forgot to press the go live button. And you were all sitting there waiting. And me and Simon were having a great conversation thinking we were live and we weren't live. Oh my God, we are just not professionals at all.
No, we did just have breakfast. I heard you had breakfast.
Do you know what? I actually didn't have breakfast because I get so nervous when I'm doing live events that I can't eat. So I I get up and I have like zero experience of doing live events or getting on a stage, right? And no, I freak out. I just get panicked and my stomach is like, no. So yeah, with me and Simon did a great intro and you all missed it because I forgot to press the go live button. So we're going to do all that again, like take two. Bam. So welcome everybody. We're a couple of minutes late. Thank you all for joining and let us know where you are calling from. So I already know this, but I'm going to just repeat and say, Simon, where are you from today?
That's an interesting question, Debbie. I'm from Berlin, wonderful Germany. It's a cloudy day today, but it's 10 a.m., so perfect time to do a live stream. I haven't had breakfast yet because I don't do breakfast. But yeah. Israel.
Don't do breakfast.
Yeah.
And that's really hard because then you get so hungry during the day. Anyway, never mind.
Pretty easy for me because I like to pretend I'm just doing intermittent fasting. That's what I tell people. But reality, I just prefer savory food. I don't like breakfast.
I mean, you could have whatever you want for breakfast. You could have curry if you want.
Right, but I like cooking for lunch and then have a really...
Fair enough. Well, we've got some rainy England, we got Finland, we got India, France, Bordeaux, we've got Israel, we've got Romania. So keep putting in where you're from. Bristol, UK. I'm in Mallorca in Spain. It's a really hard life living on this sunny island. We got Ukraine. Wow, nice. Alexi, welcome. But first of all, you all know who I am. And if you do not know who I am, then you're not watching enough Playwright stuff. So do your homework. No, seriously, you should know who I am. But you probably don't know who Simon is, and that's okay. So I'm going to let Simon introduce himself.
Yes, hello, my name is Simon. I'm the newest member of the Playwright team. I joined just a couple of weeks ago. I think this is week 5. And I help Playwright work on Playwright features. Right, that's what I do. Before working on Playwright, I worked for a couple of years at Netlify, where I touched basically everything developer facing. I worked on their Next.js support, on Edge functions. And then before Netlify, I helped build a small JavaScript framework. So developer tooling is my thing. And I don't know, it's really fun working on Playwright now.
I built a JavaScript framework as well, Simon. It's just something you should never, ever do, right? You should always do it because it's a great experience, but never do it because why? There's so many great
It's fun building it. You probably shouldn't try make people use it.
That's the best way to put it. Okay, we've got some more people in there. We've got Denmark. I'm going to Denmark next week. I'll be in Copenhagen for a conference speaking about Playwright. So Anders, tell me what I should do in Copenhagen and what I should visit and eat. Cool. So welcome, Simon, and thank you for joining our team. It's great to have more engineers on the team because we have all these people wanting more features and we need more people to create all these features. So amazing. If you do have features that you want Simon to build, just kind of put in there, Simon, build this, and he'll really think about it.
I'll probably tell you to open an issue and then
probably. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to just quickly go over what was in the latest release. So if you missed the latest release, don't forget on YouTube, we have a release video that's out there. You can go ahead and watch that in your own time if you have to rush off and do some work, or if you're kind of working at the same time, watching this at the same time, which is totally fine. But yes, do watch that. There was a couple of things like client certificates. So you can now test website with client certificates. So that's really cool for those that need that. And there's a nice couple of UI mode improvements or trace view improvements. So check those out. But what we're here to talk about today is only change. And it's kind of really cool because it's now it has its use cases, right? I think Simon's going to go into that a little bit. We're not saying that, drop everything and only use only changed, right? Because there are other ways of doing things such as watch mode, etc. So we're just saying that this is a new feature that you might find useful and you might not. And that's totally cool. But it is really cool. And Simon, do you want to talk about it first, demo it first? Take it away.
Yeah, sure. So only change is a feature that just landed in the last release. And people have been asking for it for a while and finally landed now. And I'll share my screen to show you what it's about. I think the screen already shared. Debbie, would you put it on stage?
Yep, I have it up.
Nice. All right, so you're seeing a VS Code, right? And this is just a very, very boring small Playwright test. It tests the to-do MVC app, so this application, and it gets like the input field, puts in a to-do, presses enter. So essentially what it does is it says add milk, enter, and then checks if add milk is in there, right? Well, I think it should be get milk, because adding milk is not a good to-do. And so this is what the test does. And the idea behind only changed is that I can like very quickly filter something to only run the changed tests. So imagine that I would be working on this. I don't know, see if my tests will work. I run npx playwright test, does all the tests. And this is fine, right? This only takes like a couple milliseconds because it's just one test, it's fast. But you could be in a project where there's thousands of tests, right? That take very long each. And then when you change a test, maybe you only want to change that test, right? And if maybe I want to say that instead of filling in to do here, instead of buy milk, I want to say buy oranges, because I'm a really big orange fan. And then I would either run everything, or one thing I could do, this will fail, right? Because it won't have, it's looking for buy milk, but it only found buy orange.
Can you just zoom in there a little bit, Simon?
Yeah, sure. Is this better? Can zoom in.
Yeah,
and then
cool. That's nicer, yes.
Yeah, okay. So, and if I wanted to filter down to just a specific test, right, I could do like -- grep to do, and that would run that test because it would filter by the test name. Another thing I could do is I could say that I want to run the test.spec.ts file and like only line 4, and that would also work. So there's a bunch of ways of filtering, and only changes a new way of filtering. The way it works is that it only runs the tests or the test files that are affected by changes in Git. So you can see that I have a Git change here, right? So there's an uncommitted change in test.spec.ts that changes this to do to buy orange, right? Now if I run playwright test -- only changed. If I do this, -- only changed, then it will look at the changes in Git, and it will identify which of these lead to change tests. And in this case, it's really easy, right? There's a change to test.spec.ts, so we need to rerun test.spec.ts, and it did that just now. But the nice thing is that let us revert this test. So now there's no changes anymore, right? If I run -- only changed, now it says error, no tests found, because there is no tests. But this is a little smarter than just looking at the changed test files. You can see that I imported this to-do variable from like a separate file, right? The utils.ts file. And this is just a constant. Imagine, like, this is obviously a demo project, right? But this could contain like your selectors for your application. You could have like a shared utils file that contains all the selectors. You could also
be base URLs as well.
Base URLs, right? Like a constants file, or maybe there's a file that contains fixtures, right? So there's ways it could work. And let's just change this to buy oranges in here. So we can see in Git that, again, there's a change, but this time it's not a change in the test file itself, in a dependency of the test file, right? I can already see where this is going. If now we run -- only changed, it will be rerunning the test. And this time it passed, it didn't fail, because we are reusing this variable both for entering and for checking tests. So that didn't feel like last time, where we only changed one of the two. But so essentially, only changed is for running all change test files based on the Git changes. And the way this works is essentially we run a big Git diff, and we look at all the files that are affected. And then we look at the dependency graph, right? We look at how files import one another, and then we identify all the affected test files. So because the test.spec.ts imports utils.ts, and Playwright knows about that, because it imports utils.ts, a change in utils.ts will trigger the test to be rerun. And you can use this in a little more fancy ways as well. So
if you had this test, if you had this another test file, for example, that was using utils, then it's going to run that other test file as well, right?
Right. Let's just try it out, right? So we'll add another test. We'll just copy this over. We'll call it test2, and then in test2, it's exactly the same thing. We'll revert this. So there's no changes in utils.ts anymore, but there is a change in test2, right? Because we just added this. Now if we run npx playwright, then you can see that it does run test2. It does not run test1. Now let's commit this, add test2. And when we run only changed, it's back to no tests found. Now we'll go into utils.ts. We'll change.
Let's buy chocolate.
Let's buy chocolate. Okay, that's good.
I like chocolate.
What's your favorite chocolate?
Just dark chocolate.
Dark chocolate. Yeah, that's the best. That's the best. And now when we run this again, maybe in the chat, can you tell me what will happen? Let's make some.
It's 2. It's gonna have 2, right? It has to be 2. But Cameron has a good question here. I'm gonna just throw up that there.
There are 2 tests with the same TS file, and test 1 had changes and test 2 did not. Would it only run test 1? That is a really good question, and we were thinking actually 2 days ago. We were thinking, could we make that work? Could we make it work where we don't just filter by test files, we would also filter out the specific change tests? And turns out, like, I would have liked to make that work, but it's really, really, really hard to analyze that based on the JavaScript file. Because for like the common case, it would work all right. We would be able to identify in what test case the changed lines are, right? So we would look at line number changes. But then more generally, you could have different test cases, reuse the same global variables, and they would affect one another. And so that really doesn't work, sadly. So that doesn't work.
But basically, it runs every test in the test file that has a change.
Right. So it's not only changed tests, but it's only changed test files.
There you go.
That way, yeah.
Anders has something just going to throw it up on the screen. The error no test found is a bit misleading. It's more like no change tests, right?
It's going to change in the next release. We already request that.
I love that. Live. We're going to change it now. He's going to make a commit right now.
Cool. All right. So now if we saw that if we run this with 2 tests and the change in the details file, we rerun all the test files that are affected, right?
Yeah.
And let's revert this again and let's look at a different use case. So imagine you're working on a feature branch, right? So we have our main branch here, and then we're going to check out to, like, I know, feature oranges, right?
You like oranges.
Yeah, we like oranges. I like oranges. And then we make 2 changes. Maybe what do we do? Let's think. The first thing we do is we change the input place. So, oh no, let's
just double the test, no, and add another one.
Yeah, we'll add another one. Add it to do, adding it to do 2. So we add one here. Now this is not committed, so if we run dash only changed, it will run the entire file. Now if we commit this, we again have no committed changes, right? So it won't run any tests. And now let's also make the same change to this other file. And in here, it will again only run the test file and not the test2 file. And we'll commit it as well. Add to do to test 1. Oh God, so bad commit messages. And now what's interesting is if we run only changed, we won't get any tests, right? But
because your Git is clean, right?
Yeah, because Git is clean, right? But we're working on a feature branch, and chances are that we want to execute all the tests that are affected by our feature, right? So we're building, like, over a couple of days, we're building out this feature, we're adding a couple of tests, we're changing a couple of tests, and it grows so long that it's not really, you don't remember anymore what tests you changed, you don't want to figure it out. You just want to run all the tests that changed in your feature. Now, one thing you can do is you can say, I want to run all the tests that changed since main, right? So you can pass like a Git revision to compare against. So if we pass only change since main, then it will not compare against your local head, against your local commit, but it will compare against main, against the revision you specified. In this case, we had two commits that each changed a single file, and both commits together changed both files. So we need to rerun both files, right?
Which means you could, like, run that before you merge it in, and then your tests are not going to break main, right?
Right. And just to make it a little more complicated, you can't just put main. You could put any Git reference, right? So we could also say we only want to run the changes that changed since, or run the tests that changed since the latest commit. So we would run only changed equals and a commit ID. And this compares to current head, so it doesn't work. But we can use, I don't know, we can use the commit from before that. Only changed equals commit before that, and then it would run only a single file, right? So you can,
very cool.
Against
go back in case you had a big massive problem and you're trying to figure out where it went wrong. You can go back a little bit and go, oh, then now I know, right?
Yeah. You can see the question, local main or origin. It will be whatever your local Git thinks is main, right? So if you do git log main, you will see what local Git thinks is main. That is what we're using, right? So we're not looking at your remote. We're not looking at any like GitHub. We just look at your local Git. So if you want to look at origin main, chances are that you could probably do like origin/main, and then it will be.
You haven't.
Doesn't work in this case because this is a local repository, not have an origin, right? But you could do this, and you can see that under the hood. So we just see an error, right? Cannot detect changed files for only changed mode. And this is the command Playwright tried running. So it literally just tried running git diff origin/main --name only. And --name only means that you don't get like a huge diff, but just the changed files. And that's the list of files that we use to figure out what tests.
Nice.
All right.
It's really cool. What do you think in the chat? Let us know if it's something that you're using, have used. But for those who haven't used it, when would you use this? I mean, I can see you're using it now, right? I could just use watch mode or VS Code extension and just, press that one test. But if I'm changing utils, it's not going to run the test. So it is a little bit different to watch mode. But is this something we'd use on CI?
Well, CI is a bit of a touchy topic. So let's think about how you could use this on CI, right? Because you could think, oh, if I can detect what files to run on with -- only changed, then I can really save on my CI cost and my runtime, right? Because I could filter down the text to only what really is necessary, to only what changed. And there's two big problems to this. And problem number one is the algorithm that we wrote is like a best effort algorithm. And there are certain files that we're able to identify as having changed, but there's some sort of relationships that you can do in JavaScript that we're not able to detect, right? So the only thing we go by is your dependency graph and how the different files import one another. But imagine that you had like an async import, like a dynamic import with a how do you call it, like a like a pattern, right, where it's not static what is imported, we wouldn't be able to detect that. And so there might be cases where Playwright is just not able to figure out that the test changed where it did change. So only changed will not catch all tests. Don't rely on it for the verification of your software. And then another reason you shouldn't be doing it, only change is only able to figure out changes in your test suite. What if your application changed? What if the application that you're trying to assert did not change? What if it changes? Playwright has no idea that the application changed until it runs your tests, right?
Yeah.
That's used to figure out that the application.
Because it's only running the only change test, so it's going to run one test, and that test passes. But maybe something in your application changed, and all your tests are going to fail, but you don't know. So,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be like, imagine a pull request that just puts a big error, big throw error in your application. Everything crashes, but it didn't touch a single test file. Only changed would think that nothing changed, so it doesn't need to run tests. Right? So do not rely on this to verify that the application behaves as intended. There's two cases where you can still use this, though. Number one is to speed up your feedback process, your feedback cycle. So before you do the full Playwright test run, where all tests are run and you catch all the bugs, you could do preliminary, it's really hard to pronounce that word. You could do like a preliminary test run that uses only changed. And so that would mean that the change tests, which are more likely to fail, right? Like change tests are more likely to fail in a pull request. Those would be run first. And so any failures, you would see them faster, but you would still run the entire test suite later. That's one.
So like doing a pre-commit, right? Like a pre-commit hook that runs only changed, and then you run your test.
That's how you could do it, but you could also just put it into your pull request CI.
Okay.
And that would make the overall execution time longer because you're now running some of your tests twice.
Yeah.
But it would shorten the feedback cycle until you learn about faulty tests. That's one way of using it. And then there's a different case where it would be all right. So if your repository only contains tests and does not contain the application, then chances are that you are already running your test suite periodically, and only change will be very close to only change, like the results of only change will be very close to what really should be run, right? So if your repository is only tests and you work in the QA setting where you don't develop the application but you develop the tests and they're separated anyways, then you can also use only change. Then you would maybe use only change in a pull request and then run the full test suite periodically. So that's one thing you could also do. So those are the two cases where it's okay to use it. But really, it's important to understand that only changed is like a heuristic.
Not taking over the world.
And use it when appropriate. Don't use it when inappropriate.
There's a good question here I'm going to just throw up. What if I do changes in the Playwright config file? Is this affect all test files and affect how only changed option identifies which tests are changed? I don't know, maybe you might change like the viewport or something in the config file, and now all tests are going to rely on that different viewport or base URL or something.
That is a good question. Right now, changes in the config file are not respected in any special way. So changes to viewport would not rerun all the tests. But now that you're saying it, it sounds like it should. So maybe we need to add a special case to that.
But then if you're going to change something in your config, you're kind of going to change all your tests because all your tests normally are based off your config, but maybe you might change a project. Maybe you might change a project dependency or a setup or something. So yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, you're probably not depending on only changed to verify your application anyways. So it would be fine to not run tests when the config changes. Actually, I'll take that to a sync tonight to discuss with the rest of the team. an interesting question.
Yeah, thank you, Petra. Cool. Any other questions out there? I know a few people are using it, and it'd be great to hear feedback on, are you finding it useful? Are there any kind of issues like this, like for the Playwright config? This is great feedback, and this is something that helps us improve the product and improve the feature. So always throw your questions at us. If you're watching this later on, just create a feature request or an issue if something is not working as it should be expected on GitHub, and if also in Discord, right? Join our Discord server, and you can kind of throw your questions in there, and help is on its way in there.
Yeah, I also have some recommendations for how you can use this in your workflow. So
sharing side, there you go.
Yeah, we put up a blog post just yesterday about this new feature, and you might recognize this test, right? Like this is what we looked at today. And there is a couple of recipes in the bottom, and there's local development.
Nice.
That you already saw, right? So where you can use dash only changed main to test all feature branch changes. You could also integrate this into your workflow, right? So if you could do like a pre-commit hook, and you would run all the tests that changed before making a commit. Depending on your workflow, that might work. Another thing you could do is you could have like a pre-push hook where every time you try to push to GitHub, it runs all the change tests before. And there's like a small snippet that you can copy and adapt for your use case there. And this, for example, is good to not trigger CI runs that will fail, right? So this is good to save on CI resources. And then the fast feedback in CI, that's the thing I talked about. So you could have prior to your normal full test run, you could have like a preliminary test run that runs only changed. And this would be how it looks on GitHub Actions. And then there's a bonus idea. Like if you're interested in only change, the chances are you should check out watch mode, right? That's the thing that already exists in the UI. So if you run Playwright test -- UI, you will get this wonderful UI. And you could say that I want to, every time that this test changes, I want to rerun it. So let me make this side by side. So when adding a to-do here, when that changes, let's save the file, then it will automatically start rerunning. And you can see that right here, right? Pay attention to this. If I save the file, it will rerun the test. And this is another way of quickly executing all the changes that you make locally. So it sounds like a similar use case to only changed, but only simple.
Similar use case, but then the utils example is quite nice, right? Because it's you're changing something outside of a test spec file that you can't watch that really. Well, you could. Can you watch that?
If you say watch all, and then you change the utils and all of them.
Look at that, it does. So it works exactly the same. Cool.
Oh, yeah, and I think if now if I only save test2, we should be seeing that only test2 is being rerun, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Exactly the same. Yeah.
Cool.
Right. So
there's a nice question there, if you don't mind. If global setup changes, this triggers all tests.
In global setup changes, this triggers all tests. True. Yeah. I mean, that's what it should, right? Global setup affects all changes. I'm not sure if it does that today. I need to look into that because this is a similar request than the config one. Right?
Global setup is maybe adding a user to a database, kind of mocking something out, and then your test depends on that global setup, right? So, so if you change that mock data, that setup, then it's going to affect. So it's kind of like the utils file, right?
It's kind of like a utils file, right? But I think that we discussed this internally, and we don't think that global setup should be really part of your test content, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to rerun the tests if the setup changes. But I think if you had that, for example, in a fixture, right? If the database setup would be in a fixture, then only change should pick it up.
Okay, makes sense. I mean, if you're going to change your global setup, you want to rerun all your tests because they're depending on that. Global is global. It's taking everything. So it's a pretty big change. Cool. That's great questions, though. Thank you for those questions. If you have any other questions, also reach out to Simon through that blog post, give it a read and comment on that, and he'll get back to you on any of those. If you can't find the blog post, go to the Playwright website, scroll down to the bottom and click on blog and you'll get there. So, or he can throw the link in the chat.
Follow the link in YouTube. I just put it in the chat. Oh, no, it doesn't work. Okay. I was trying to.
And as Andrew says, it's nice to be able to catch errors before pipelines without running all your tests. Exactly. Yeah. Cool. And yeah, thanks for the nice presentation, Simon and D. O'Brien. Lovely. Thank you for the feedback.
That was fun.
Okay, there's a question here. I'm going to answer this because this is a cool question. Is there any chance Playwright moved to the paid version, right? We're going completely off topic here, right? This is not only changed, but it does have a, it changed. Is Playwright moving to a paid version? No, Playwright is open source and will always, always, always remain open source. However, there is another team. Oh, you're making noise, Simon. There is another team in our Azure team that are working on a scaling paid solution. If you are basically running tests at scale and you want to use browsers in the cloud and you want to take leverage of that and pay for kind of cloud services that use Playwright and reporting that uses Playwright, then that is a service by the Azure team that is paid for, because obviously you're using compute from the cloud and that costs money and stuff. But Playwright in itself is open source, will always be open source. We don't need money. We get paid by GitHub stars. So if you star us on GitHub, then we get money, so that we don't need money. But yeah, no, seriously, Playwright's open source, always be open source. Don't be worrying about that. Just like TypeScript. TypeScript is open source. VS Code, also open source. So a lot of products from Microsoft will always be open source. So no worries on that one.
We're part of the same organization with Microsoft, right? Like the TypeScript team is just a sister team of ours. It works
exactly.
The same.
Exactly. But anytime we use Azure, then that's where the money is. And if you are running tests at scale, I do highly recommend you check out that. And we have a channel in our Discord server as well for the Microsoft Playwright testing service. If you wanted more information on that and check out kind of stuff like that, go into that channel and there's some links in there and you get some videos and watch some stuff on that. And we'll be covering some stuff because they're going to be launching the reporting very soon. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming in that section, but that's more for, at scale, big organizations, big companies that need something like that. So cool. Yeah, there's a little upvote here. Okay, I get you. Here you go. Simon, this is for you. Any updates on component testing? What is the status? I think I'm answering this question all the time. And I'm kind of saying, and I'm like,
the status
Simon's already new.
We're trying to figure out if we can like devote the time to it that it needs. And I mean, I joined now, so we have more resources, and this might be something that we will stabilize. But and this would be something that I think I would be interested in, but I need to understand the project better and like understand everything there is, right? So that we can make a good decision there. And so no updates really in components testing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we would love to. Basically, we would love to. It's not like we're not doing it. It's just that we need to invest time in it to do it properly. There's no point in doing something and half doing it. And that's why it's still an experimental. It's still very good, but we haven't tested across every single framework and every single kind of scenario. But if you're using it, like file issues and tell us if there's something that isn't working. For example, like prioritize SvelteKit first, but then someone else will say, but we need this first. And now we got Astro, and now we got this, and this. It's non-stop, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, another one. WebSocket mocking.
Dima is working on it, and like he's demoing his like progress pretty much every week, and so it's being actively worked on.
Cool. I'm just going to go back, see if there are any other questions from earlier. I don't know if you want to answer this. Why not web UI frameworks provide Playwright page object models as libraries out of the box? Shad CN. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Ask those frameworks. I don't know.
It's a framework.
Yeah, but maybe you can help me. Is ShardCN, is that an abbreviation? Like every time I read the name, I'm having trouble pronouncing it in my head. And I wonder if it's like, if it means something.
And I have a question here. While I did more Java automation, do you have any tutorials for testers which want to learn TypeScript with a Java background? Well, I'm not a Java developer, but I think anyone that's come from Java, TypeScript is a pretty similar, not similar, I don't mean similar, but you're going to understand things a lot easier than if you didn't come from a Java background, I think, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. So
you can see from the code whether folks that learn TypeScript come from a JavaScript or a Java background.
Yeah. You're already like a step ahead of the JavaScript developers. So good. You're going to do great. So do we have any tutorials? Well, we do have like a learn module that you could take, which is pretty basic, but it's going to get you there. We don't dive into TypeScript as such, right? We're not covering TypeScript, but we just use TypeScript out of the box because it just gives you much better messages and types basically, and also like documentation while you're using VS Code, etc. But check out the links at the bottom of the Playwright website. Scroll down to the bottom and you can have training. There's a training there. Click on that, take that, and as well our YouTube videos, etc., etc. And if there's anything missing, just let us know, and we'll create it. We'll do everything. We'll do everything you ask for. Okay, this one, Simon, support for BDD.
I think it's one of the top voted issues, right? Yeah. No,
I always say like we're eating our cucumber sandwiches, but we're not putting it in to our test yet. It's I don't know. I don't have an answer. I don't know when we'll have an answer, but keep bothering the team, right? Keep upvoting those issues and like, because that's how UI mode came about. People kept bothering so much. They were like, oh my God, right, we're going to invest time in this because people really want it. And we came out with a seriously amazing feature. So you need to kind of just keep asking for it. It does take time because there's so many things people want, and we are a very, very small team, and there's only so many things we can do and prioritize, but we will like get to those. But obviously, like, if we can, right? If it's a possibility, and if we have the time to invest into that. So yeah, I know it's frustrating because you're like, I want it now. And we always say, go to Tally, and she's created this, external kind of way of doing it, and it's not internal and blah, blah. I know, I hear you. But yeah, okay, I've got another question here. Nice feature for -- debug would be a possibility to select only one window to focus debugging, and rest would be in play mode.
Interesting. I mean, sounds like you should open a feature request.
I was going to say the same thing. Exactly. Like, that sounds cool. And put like a little kind of, or even better, we've had a lot of third-party contributors lately doing some really cool stuff for us. The last release was a lot of third-party contributors. So if you think this is something you could do, like, go ahead and like make a contribution. Playwright's open source, so we welcome that.
But make sure to open an issue before and just discuss with us how to exactly build it, because I mean, we both definitely have some thoughts around like the best way of doing it, and so we want to make sure that we're aligned on
that you don't invest too much time kind of going down a rabbit hole. But yeah, but basically, like, the possibility is there. Do you have plans on integrating -- debug into UI mode? Yeah, like why would you need it? Why do you need debug when you're using UI mode, which helps you step through the test, and you can pop it out into a DOM snapshot and you can see everything? So why would you want -- debug? Again, write a feature request and explain your use case and why you think this is important and why would it be helpful?
Right. I mean, if it's a useful feature, we'll build it. So open the feature request, convince us, and then we'll do it.
What software do you recommend using with Playwright for test management, such as TestRail? Are you familiar with TestRail, Simon?
I am not.
Neither am I, so I cannot help on that question, I'm afraid.
No.
But throw it into the Discord channel and someone might help.
I think I need to learn more about the processes that QA engine like.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah,
I think they do a lot of cool stuff. We should just get a QA engineers on the stream to answer all those questions and have it like, but yeah, do let us know. Yeah, submit an issue as well, or create in Discord. Create your question in there, because there's a lot of engineers in there, a lot of test automators in there that will be able to help you and might already be using or having that solution. Cool. So we are coming up close on time. So if you have any other questions, throw them in now, because that is your last chance, because we will never be live again. I'm only messing. We will be back again probably next month. Let's have a look. We have UI mode with debug would allow you to step-by-step execution of the test. But if you have -- debug with focus only on one window, that would be the same use case.
But I think you could have multiple page.pause calls in your code, and you would also have execution of tests. Yeah. I think you need to fight your case. I'm not sure I'm going to say this right, but EK, you need to fight your case. Do that feature request and convince us that this is something that we should be investing our time in. Great. I've got another question here. Is there a reporter that can include my user story title or ticket ID from Azure DevOps when produce Playwright report? Yes.
Oh, there is, Simon. You do? No, yeah. I was going to say, you haven't had time to play the reporting, but you have. Oh, wow.
I think you could just use annotations.
Exactly. I was going to say, we covered it in the video as a tip of the day. So if you watch our latest video for annotations, then you should be able to do that. So yeah, check the start of the video for the latest release, and that should help you. And if not, let us know. Okay. Is Microsoft going to bring the same features into Playwright C#, similar to what we have with TypeScript? Since spec flow seems to be left, many testers would like to keep using C# with Playwright. Do keep using C# with Playwright. Obviously, at Microsoft, we have a lot of C# developers, and we're using it internally. And I'm working with a lot of teams as well inside Microsoft that are building a lot of kind of C# stuff and testing those Blazor applications and a lot of other applications. And we are working with some other teams to improve the C# experience, that's for sure. But is it going to have the same features? No, because you cannot compare. And the reason why you cannot compare is because Playwright has its own test runner. And because we built that test runner, we can do what we want to it. And we can, bring it to whatever angle we want. But
the test exists in JavaScript and TypeScript, and we don't have that for C#.
Yes. So for C#, we rely on, MS Test or XUnit, NUnit, etc. So there are some things that we can implement, or we rely on those. But we are definitely working with other teams to improve things. But we did revamp the whole getting started section in the docs for C#. And most of the features are there. So let us know what feature it is that you're missing specifically, that you're like, I really need this. This is a must. And we'll see what we can do or how we can kind of work on that. Okay, we've got 3 times. I hear you. Mobile app support? No. The answer is no. I am sorry, but we do not have a team that can work on mobile apps. We are browser-based, so we will work only on browser-based, and we can emulate. And emulation is great. It's not exactly a mobile app support.
And also, you're the wrong team for that, right? 3 folks in our team are 10-year Chromium developers. They know about browsers. They don't know about mobile apps. So,
yeah,
not this project.
Exactly. So, yeah, sorry. I would love to turn around and say, yes, we're going to go into that whole app scenario and do all that as well, because it would really make Playwright amazing. Wow, it just covers everything. But it's just not going to happen. Maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years. I don't know. But right now, it's just not going to happen. I'm so sorry. Does not support the test case attribute out of the box. Don't know what that question is referring to, but that's fine. And awesome. Thank you, Debbie. And Knox. You're now called Knox. I love it.
Yeah, Knox is nice.
I like it. Cool. We have answered all questions. We are coming up towards the very, very end. So you have 2 minutes more to add in questions. If not, I'm just going to let you know what's happening next. What is happening next? Simon, what are you working on? Do you want to tell them? Is there anything you are kind of excited to work on since you joined the team?
The thing I'm working on right now is watch mode for the CLI, and this is something that we had as an
What?
experimental for a while now. The idea is that you can, in the future, you can do npx playwright test -- watch, and then it would be, rerunning all the tests as you edit files. And we already had that, but we were refactoring it to work
We
better.
built that before the UI mode.
Right.
It was like the start of the UI mode, and then watch mode, and then like UI mode took over the world.
So that's what I'm working on. And there's like a bunch of smaller bug things. There's one interesting bit where the trace viewer, right? If you open UI mode,
Yeah.
you have this nice browser window where you can see what it ran, and you can also see this like we call it a trace. You can also see that on failed tests when you download it from your CI. And it doesn't show canvases. So if you use WebGL or like any sort of canvas rendering thing, then those canvas contents won't show up. And that actually is a really interesting issue from also a technical perspective, because if we wanted to capture that, if we wanted to show that in the snapshot, then we would need to get the contents of the canvas, right? Turns out that's really hard to do with browsers, because canvas is about like high performance. And because it's so high performant, the GPU that renders the canvas will immediately write the canvas contents to your monitor, and the contents will be saved nowhere. Like you won't be able to access them because it writes them to the monitor. They're gone. They need that because otherwise it will be so much memory to store. And so there's not a simple way of getting access to the canvas. And we tried doing it. It was really hard. And now what we're building is a small toggle where you can show a screenshot of the browser instead of the snapshot. And the difference is that this screenshot is just a pixel perfect representation of what was shown on video. And it will contain the canvas because that's what the GPU drew onto the monitor. And so it will look closer to reality, but it loses some of the fidelity. You're not able to select the locator anymore. You're not able to scroll around, but you can see canvases. So that's what I'm working on, essentially a way of making traces work well for people that use Canvas.
Nice.
Small nifty feature, but like helps some people a lot.
Very cool. And speaking of trace, so Kostiantin, runner features in UI mode for C#. So the UI mode doesn't exist in C#, but you do have the trace viewer, and you can open that trace locally, and that is in the docs of how to do that. So yes, you don't have exactly UI mode, but you do. Trace viewer or UI mode is using the trace and just has like the watch mode added to it. So you don't have that watch mode capability, but you still can go through your test trace. So check that out if you haven't already done that. Cool. So that was fun. Simon, thank you for joining us today and giving us that demo, explaining everything. I'll put the links into the into this show notes as well, the blog post, etc., so that if you're watching later, you can kind of get those. And basically, subscribe to the channel. We're going to create more videos. We'll keep creating loads of cool stuff, loads of features. So check out those when we release them. And make sure you're joining our Discord server. We had 13,415 members, which is insane. So thank you everyone for being such a great members of the community. And contributors, thank you for your contributions in the last release. And thank you everyone for joining. Simon, do you have any last words?
Have a good day, and remember to stay hydrated.
Yeah, Simon's going to drink orange juice, and I'm going to go eat chocolate.
No.
No, you're not going to eat chocolate? Okay.